Good morning, my fabulous family, for today's episode of Everything Yesterday This Morning. The Saudi Crown Prince says he does not care if Biden misunderstands him. He says that Biden should be focusing on America's interests in an interview published yesterday. The long standing relationship between the United States and Saudi Arabia has come under strain due to the Yemen war and murder of Jamal Khashoggi. Prince Mohammed suggested in a separate but related marks that Riyadh could choose to reduce investments in the United States, and his direct quote is simply, "I do not care." He was asked if Biden misunderstood things about him. He said, "It's up to Biden to think about the interests of America. We don't have the right to lecture you in America. The same goes the other way." The Biden administration implicated the prince in the murder of Khashoggi, who was killed inside the Istanbul consulate. And the prince said, "I feel that human rights law wasn't applied to me. Article 11 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights states that any person is innocent until proven guilty." Now, me personally, I find this whole situation fascinating, to be honest with you. Um, it has to make you wonder, the United States is persecuting Julian Assange with the utmost vengeance because he published the truth and it hurt the big bad government's feelings. While not murdered and dismembered, the fact that Julian is unable to be with his wife and children simply for printing the truth. Remember, nothing he's published has been refuted or proven inaccurate ever in the history of WikiLeaks. Just WikiLeaks. It's Friday, casual Friday. What? And I still have this weird frog in my throat. I'm not sleeping, so dark circles under my eyes. Woohoo. China warships were detected near Taiwan after the United States Navy's Strait Transit. Small formations of Chinese warships were detected off the coast of southeast Taiwan on 3 consecutive days. The Chinese Navy maneuvers brought the ships closest they had been to Taiwan's territorial waters in recent memory. The Navy told the news service that all marine traffic around the island was being monitored. Although China's Air Force is constantly breaching the island's air defense, less is said about Chinese vessels in the vicinity. Taipei has yet to disclose the extent of its naval radar capabilities. Analysts believe the Chinese ships were likely returning to port following exercises elsewhere, but had mentioned holy bananas, you guys, but had been intentionally directed past Taiwan as a show of force. As I mentioned last week, the U.S. sent a warship through the Taiwan Strait as a show of solidarity with Taiwan. The Chinese called the move provocative and likened the ship to scrap metal. The gimmick of sending vessels to sail through. Let's try this again. The gimmick of sending vessels to sail through the Taiwan Strait is better saved to entertain those obsessed with hegemony. The US would pay a heavy price for emboldening Taiwan. I'm not sure if it's becoming obvious to anyone else, but other nations are growing very tired of the United States acting as if it's the international arbiter of all things democracy. Russia's richest man, Alexei Mordashov, transferred control. I really love, it's becoming like a thing. I put all these names on here and I fucking butcher them. I have no idea how to pronounce these people's names. Transferred control of a $1.1 billion stake in a mining company to his wife. The mining company is called Nordgold, and he stepped down as director and transferred control to his wife, Marina Alexandrova Mordashova. She now holds between 50 and 75% of the voting rights in the company, which has a targeted valuation of up to $5 billion last year. Mordashov said it is the richest man in Russia, and as we all know, oligarchs have become prime targets for Western government sanctions as a result of Putin's invasion of Ukraine. Many of the oligarchs have either started to dispose of their assets or move them to regions where they can't be seized. Since Russia invaded Ukraine, he has protested not only the attack, but also the sanctions that were placed against him. He said, and I quote, "I have absolutely nothing to do with the current geopolitical tensions. I don't understand why sanctions have been imposed against us. While a shot has not been fired, it would certainly appear clear that the West has declared war on Russia and their mission is to destroy the country. The ruble, over the course of the last 10 years, has gone from being $1 to $29.30. Yesterday, the exchange rate was $105.35 to a dollar. Odd that one of two countries left without a central bank is having their currency devalued at an unprecedented rate. Ask yourself why and who benefits. Again, don't mistake my disdain for approval of Russia's activities. I do not believe that any country has the right to invade another country. What Russia is doing is wrong, full send. However, having companies shutting down plants, putting people out of work, seizing and freezing assets of private citizens, regardless of your feelings about them or how they acquired their wealth, it's none of our business, and we probably need to learn to mind it. This is the equivalency of sanctioning like Nancy Pelosi or her husband. They're oligarchs in the United States. There's no other way to put it. They're political individuals who have made fortunes off of the backs of American citizens. There's action on ticket cameras being pursued in 15 states. State lawmakers throughout the nation are pursuing rules on the use of automated ticket cameras. Pete Buttigieg last month unveiled plans to address a record increase in traffic deaths on the nation's highways. Automated cameras were included among the tools identified to aid reducing fatalities. Automated speed enforcement, if deployed equitably and applied appropriately to roads with the greatest risk of harm due to speeding, can provide significant safety benefits and saves lives. First of all, how is a camera deployed equitably? Is it fun to just throw that word into everything now? Do cameras reach out and grab a vehicle when it's speeding and slow it down? Why does it seem that every time something happens, the government has the solution, but it's merely a tool by which to generate revenue? Speed limits? Pfft. The limit is whatever the governor on my speedometer is. No, I'm just kidding. The Biden administration just asked Congress for $32.5 billion for COVID and Ukraine. The Biden administration is asking Congress to add at least $10 billion in new spending for humanitarian assistance and military operations related to Ukraine. The new spending is part of a broader ask that includes $22.5 billion for spending related to COVID-19 and work to prepare for future pandemics. Shalanda Young, who is currently the acting I'm so sorry for the little coughs, guys. Who's the current acting OMB, made the formal request for supplemental funding for critical assistance to Ukraine. Given the rapidly evolving situation, I anticipate additional needs may arise over time based on the administration's best information on resource requirements at this time. On pandemic spending, Young said Biden's COVID-19 preparedness plan will likely need more money to help America move forward safely and get us back to our more normal routines. Y'all, I kid you not, that's a direct quote. I'm going to say it one more time. On pandemic spending, Young said Biden's COVID-19 preparedness plan will likely need more money to help America move forward safely and get us back to our more normal routines. Who's not on their normal routine at this point? And why aren't they? Of the $10 billion sought for Ukraine, $4.8 billion will go to the Defense Department to support U.S. troop deployments to neighboring countries in support of NATO efforts and provide more military equipment to Ukraine. The request also includes $5 billion for the State Department and U.S. Agency for International Development to boost security and economic assistance to Ukraine and regional allies, of which $2.75 billion would provide humanitarian assistance. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer said, "The annual spending bill is the quickest and most efficient way to approve the aid to Ukraine. Nothing would make Putin happier than having Democrats and Republicans divided." I don't give a fuck what makes Putin happy or unhappy. Like, can we talk about what makes America happy? Spending all this money on Ukraine? Roar! Senate Republicans have asked for an accounting of how the money already approved by Congress for COVID-19 has been spent. Sources. So I have to put that in quotations because none of this is ever verified by anybody. Like, I can't go and see, like, did this person actually say this? Sources said 90% of the available funds from the $1.9 trillion ARPA have been committed and nearly all money has been used. Additionally, of the HHS response money that was used, more than 90% was to buy vaccines and therapeutics, vaccine distribution efforts, research to improve surveillance and countermeasures, increasing the supply of personal PPE, and hospital infection control. It's just fucking paper, just print it off, right? Like, a jury on Thursday acquitted Brett Hankinson of all three counts of felony wanton endangerment in the Breonna Taylor raid. Hankinson was the only officer that was charged in connection with the 2020 shooting, but the charges were not for Breonna Taylor's death. He was tried for firing bullets through Taylor's window and sliding glass door that went into a neighboring apartment where 3 people were present. The defense argued that Hankinson acted to defend his fellow officers, including one who had been shot in a chaotic situation. Had he been convicted, he faced 1 to 5 years in prison for each charge. U.S. senators introduce an act to ban Russian oil and energy imports. The plan was introduced with bipartisan support from Lisa Murkowski and Joe Manchin, West Virginia and Alaska. The bill, if passed, would ban Russian petroleum and petroleum products such as crude oil and coal. Manchin said the bill shows the united support we have for Ukraine. Gas prices in the United States have increased dramatically since the war began, even without a ban on Russian oil. Nancy Pelosi backed the bill on Thursday and said, "I'm all for that. Ban it. Ban the oil coming from Russia." Russia is currently the 3rd largest producer of oil in the world. They contribute over 10% of the global supply. But countries are looking to reduce their dependency on Russian oil. Germany, for instance, cut off the Nord Stream pipeline in spite of themselves for the sake of Ukraine. The United States is willing to allow gas to reach unknown levels in pricing in spite of themselves for the sake of Ukraine. The U.S. is the largest producer of oil in the world, but because our domestic policies with this administration, we consume more than we produce, so we rely on foreign imports from places like Canada, Saudi Arabia, and Russia. It appears, based on what I found, they want to ban the import of Russian oil with no plan to ramp up domestic production to compensate for it because, that's smart. Europe's largest nuclear power plant is on fire after shelling, according to an interview given by plant spokesman Andrei Tuz. Shells were falling directly on the Zaporizhia plant. This is so much fun. And had to set fire to one of the facility's 6 reactors. That reactor is under renovation and not operating, but there is nuclear fuel inside. Firefighters cannot get to the fire because they're being shot at. A government official told the Associated Press that elevated levels of radiation were detected near the site of the plant, which does provide 25% of Ukraine's power generation. Elsewhere, Russian forces have gained ground in their bid to cut off the country from the sea as Ukrainian leaders called on citizens to rise up and wage guerrilla warfare against the invaders. While the armored column making its way into Kiev is bogged down outside of the capital, Putin has made gains across the rest of the country, launching missiles and artillery attacks on cities all around the country. They've made pretty significant gains in the south. The US and NATO has ruled out creating a no-fly zone since the move would put Russia against Western military forces. If Russia succeeds in cutting off Ukraine's access to the Black and Azov seas, it would be a crippling blow to Ukraine's economy, and it would allow Russia to build a land corridor to Crimea. This second round of talks was held in Belarus, but Putin warned Ukraine that it must quickly accept his demands for demilitarization and declare itself neutral, renouncing its bid to join NATO. He also informed Macron that he was determined to press on with his attack, quote, until the end. The two sides have agreed to ceasefires in certain areas to allow safe passage for citizens, and a third round of talks is scheduled for next week. I've been talking about Russia and Ukraine for over a week now, so you know my opinions on all of this. I have opinions. This has been Friday's edition of Everything Yesterday This Morning. I am so glad that you joined me today. Please like, share, subscribe. I will not be on over the weekend, but I will see you guys on Monday. Take care and have a great day.